I think we are live. All right. So let me share my screen. And I will tell you all that once I start sharing my screen, I can't see anything. So as chats are happening, Victoria will answer those. I cannot see those until the end of that. So if there is a question that pertains to what we're talking about, Victoria, feel free to stop me, obviously, and we can address that, or we can hold it until the end, but I'll have her make that call. Okay, can everybody see, or Victoria, let me know if you can see my slides. Okay, awesome, great. All right, so I will go ahead and get us started. So thank you again, everybody, for joining us today with the Commission for Higher Education. My name is Hillary Deardorff. I'm the Director of our K through 12 Outreach and Post-Secondary Transitions. And then I have my colleague here. Do you want to unmute, or do you want to just introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Victoria Fair. I'm the Post-Secondary Transitions Manager.
Victoria is, I think, 3 months in, we figured out today, which is great. So she is learning right alongside a lot of you, but has been keeping up with everything, all things federal financial aid and state financial aid, to make sure that we were able to put this together and give you all these updates. Again, like I said, Michelle Ashcraft, our Chief Program Officer, will be here in a bit, and she'll be joining in as well. We want to start off. Oh, can I advance? Great. We're going to start off with just like a little overview of just some reminder things, just an overview of our strategy here through K through 12 outreach and post-secondary transitions, kind of what that roadmap looks like for your students as they're getting through their freshman year all the way to their senior year, and what that looks like at every bit for them with us. We also have Senate Roll Act 167 from the 2023 legislative cycle that we want to ensure that we come back to. That has not gone away. That is something that is continuing. So we want to touch on that a little bit and answer your questions there. We'll recap a little bit of the 24-25 FAFSA cycle, and then we'll go into our 25-26 FAFSA goal for the state, as well as what implementation looks like, and give you the information that we know from federal student aid in the U.S. Department of Education and things that we think you should probably know as well as practitioners. And then we're going to share some great resources from the federal side, resources that are here in the state, and encourage you to reach out to your resources regionally as well in your backyard. So like I said, this is our roadmap. So everything from middle school graduation, everything our section of the commission touches. So obviously our 21st Century Scholars automatic enrollment. If you have interacted with CAG in the past, you know this is a huge piece and point of interaction from our team with our outreach coordinators. Our 21st Century Scholars automatic enrollment, anything about 21st Century Scholars, they're accepting that pledge, creating those Scholar Track accounts. Hopefully we're getting that done by the end of their freshman year. It is not something that has to happen at the end of the freshman year. This can happen throughout their high school experience. So we are there alongside with you, helping you create Scholar Track accounts, not only for your 21st Century Scholars, but for your students that are doing the career discovery meetings, any of your students who are accessing their schools for pre-admissions, maybe applying for state financial aid in different ways, the Next Gen Scholarship, Mitch Daniels early graduation scholarships, everything kind of within that is going to need that Scholar Track account. And then we move down to our Scholar Success Program. So again, with our 21st Century Scholars, ensuring that we're alongside you and offering any way that we can come in and help your students. And then Indiana College Core, Career and Technical Education are also pieces of that puzzle that are within the purview under Dr. Ashcraft at the commission that we hope you are engaging with and encourage you to continue to engage with. And then towards the end of the winding road, we see FAFSA, Franco-Bannon, Next Gen, Hoosier Educator Scholarship, and other financial aid opportunities. And then, of course, pre-admission. So hopefully all of our pre-admission schools, hopefully your students are getting their letters. Hopefully you're seeing that, which is very exciting for us, and encouraging them to be applying to those colleges and considering those opportunities here within the state. And then that kind of tails end and bookmarks to that high school graduation piece, so you can kind of understand the way that we work and the things that we are doing within the commission. So Senate Enrolled Act 167 from the 2023 legislative session. It's our universal FAFSA completion. So it made FAFSA filing the default option, right, for our high school seniors, beginning with the class of 2024. This is continuing on, of course, with our class of 2025. We still have those broad opt-out provisions that are included for parents and guardians, as well as the emancipated students. A school can waive that requirement for a student after April 15th, as long as those two communications about filing the FAFSA have been sent to parents and guardians. So as long as you have done that and ensuring that you kind of have that tucked away and documented for any reason, then we can have you all as the school do that school opt-out. And I have a couple slides to show you what that looks like in Scholar Trek and where you'll be sending that information if you're new to this. So the 25-26 FAFSA waiver is on CHE's website as of today. So where you found the waiver last time, that is the exact same place that it will be. It is on our state financial aid page on the CHE site, not the Learn More Indiana site, but the CHE site. We have it hyperlinked here. So when I send these slides out to all of you as attendees, as a PDF, you should be able to get to that website very easily from here. And then those waivers should be reported by June 30th of 2025. This is aligning with our graduation details collection that is happening for not only our 21st century scholars who are graduating to ensure that we can create those awards and send them off to institutions for them to claim, but also that is us collecting honors diplomas for any of those students who are Franco-Bannon incentives, anything that we really need from a student to help us either create that award for those students or to plan on the creation of the award and keep up with that. So we just included the FAFSA waiver reporting in that June 30th deadline. And you can do that through the graduation details widget specifically for each student in Scholar Track individually, or there is a bulk uploading process for a specific cohort as well. And we ask that those waivers not be submitted until April 15th, just so we give all of our students and parents enough time, obviously, to decide if they want to file that FAFSA or if they do not want to file that FAFSA. Either way, though, if a FAFSA does come in, I know I've gotten this question a couple times, if the FAFSA does come in to us after a school has put in an opt-out or a parent and student opt-out has been entered into Scholar Track, the fact that the FAFSA came in as an ICER trumps that. Whatever it is kind of in this piece here, you will see like that no FAFSA filed here on the graduation details widget, which is what you would see when you search a student and pull up their student details page. That will say FAFSA filed no matter what the opt-out was in there previously for. So as you are reporting that FAFSA waiver, you have the individual option of going into each student as that's happening and editing the graduation details page. Once you click that pencil icon on the right, you'll see this pop-up that looks very much like this square on the right, where you can input diploma type, diploma status, cumulative GPA, cumulative SAT, GPA status, and then that FAFSA opt-out. And right below that, you can see the different types. So you can individually click student, parent, guardian opt-out, or school opt-out. That is the individual way of reporting this information student by student. If you are interested in doing that for, let's just say you have a class of 500 students that you need to do that for, individually going in may not be the best way for you to do that. So just like graduation details, we have a bulk uploading process that follows the same format. So in the spring, Dr. Ashcraft and I have committed to making sure that we have a training each year to ensure that you all know what is needed for graduation details reporting, how to report the FAFSA waiver will also be included in this, but we also just wanted to give you a preview to make sure that you all knew that this is the way that we are doing this. So if you go into Scholar Track and you log into Scholar Track as a school user, you will see the graduation details page on the navigation tab on the left-hand side of your screen. You'll click the correct cohort year that you want that information for. You have this populated file button that will populate a file from all of your students that are on your roster. That is an Excel file that will download for you. And you will see the Excel file look like this at the bottom of this page. So you will see the headers all say scholar ID, STN, first name, middle name, last name, date of birth, cohort year, social security number, and their 21st century scholar status. All of that information will be filled out. And then anything from column J to N may be blank depending on what you have reported for the student or what the student has reported for themselves through their Scholar Track account as well. So that information can all be added in. We have very specific ways that we have to have that information entered. So again, tune in for that graduation details training that will happen in the spring. We have last year's training on our Learn More YouTube page as well. So if you want a preview of what that looks like, we don't expect much to change, but we'll want you to ensure that in the spring you do join us in case there are any changes and any updates on the ways that we are inputting this information through a bulk upload process. So as you see, that column N has that FAFSA status. So in the blank cells for each of the students, if you are reporting an opt-out for that student, you will either type in or copy and paste in parent, guardian opt-out, student opt-out, or school opt-out, depending on what that is. You do not have to upload the specific actual waiver. That waiver is for you to give to your parents and guardians or the emancipated student to fill out for you to have on file. And then that information we suggest you keep on file for a while, just like any filing system that you all have at your school level. And the way that you're reporting that information is through this FAFSA status, either that individual way or this bulk uploading way. So this comes to our data share agreements and FAFSA reports. You're probably wondering, how do I even know who filed a FAFSA, who needs the opt-out? Where am I at with this? So if you have a data share agreement on file, we have something called the FAFSA Completion Project Data Share Agreement. Many of you were so great last year in sending that information to me, and many of your schools have already signed these agreements years ago as well. I think this started in 2019, and these agreements are good until 2029. So if you are unsure if you have this data share agreement on file, you'll want to go into ScholarTrack and see if you have the senior FAFSA completion report. If you have that report, as you can see on this screen, that's what it'll look like, then you have this data share on file, which means you are able to see who has and who has not filed a FAFSA with a yes or a no, including wrong year filed statuses. So you will be able to see that populate in the graduation details widget, but you will also be able to see that in the senior FAFSA completion report. So for each of your students, you'll have certain PII information, and then you will have a column of FAFSA status and an additional column for edits and corrections that need to be happening as well. So this will be super helpful for you all as practitioners in the school, boots on the ground, working with your students, families, and guardians to know exactly where a student is in the process. If we have received their ISER from the federal government, and that is in ScholarTrack, then we will have a yes status for the correct year if they filed the correct year based on their cohort. You will see that wrong year filed for them filing that FAFSA from the previous year. We all know we all get confused. We know students get confused with filing the FAFSA. So this is very helpful. If you do not know that you have this, you probably have access to it. If not, please reach out to schools at che.in.gov after checking for that FAFSA completion report. If you do not have it, let us know. And we want to make sure that we get the data share agreement signed so we can turn that on for you all. So you can see as your students are filing FAFSAs and as those ISERs are coming into us where your students are at filing wise. So who should file a FAFSA? Everybody, in our opinion, as the state, everybody should be filing a FAFSA. If you are thinking of the next steps after college, anybody who is graduating from high school should be filing a FAFSA and keeping that door open, whether they have chose a credential, 2-year degree, 4-year degree, or they're unsure of what that looks like. I tell the story each time I talk about this. I, as somebody who worked in admissions, talked with a student who was not sure if he wanted to come to college or if he was going to go into the military. He decided to go to basic training. 2 weeks before basic training, he shattered his knee, could not go and do that, and had no backup plan. He didn't file his FAFSA. His FAFSA was late. He wasn't going to get as much state financial aid potentially as he would have liked. So there are things that we want to ensure that we prevent those situations of happening. Even if it's a backup plan for a student, let's file the FAFSA. If it's part of the plan at all, or even a possibility for a student to go and receive state financial aid, we want to open up that opportunity for them. So per Senate Enrolled Act 167, all high school seniors should file a FAFSA and should opt out affirmatively if they are not going to file that FAFSA. All 21st century scholars. This is a non-negotiable because this is embedded into their Scholar Success Program. As they sign that pledge, they have said that they are going to do these things in order to get the scholarship, and filing of the FAFSA is one of them. And doing that by April 15th is the important piece of that as well. Students graduating a year early or a year late. So if they are unsure of that, or if they're thinking they're going to graduate a semester early, a year early, they should be filing a FAFSA just in case to ensure that they are ready to go for that awarding. Students who take a gap year after high school graduation, so including 21st century scholars, should still be filing a FAFSA. Any returning students who are in college should be filing a FAFSA, and as well as parents, guardians, other family members who would like to further their education and training. And they need to make sure they're filing the correct FAFSA. At any given time, there can be two open at the same time. So making sure that we know that the FAFSA is for the year that you are intending to use the aid, not this year. So we're in the 23-24 academic year. These students who are graduating should be filing the 25-26 FAFSA because that is the years that they will be utilizing their aid. FAFSA dashboard. I know some of you have been missing this. We have been missing it as well, but we have been using the NCAN dashboard that have been helping us through this delayed rollout of this FAFSA simplification. But we are coming back with the FAFSA dashboard because of the delayed data for federal student aid and the fact that we need to ensure that ScholarTrack's rosters for all of your high schools are as clean as possible. We want to ensure that that's happening so we can have the most accurate data possible for us to be on the dashboard, for you all to truly know where you're at with school filing for each of your corporations and your school districts as well. So the 25-26 FAFSA dashboard will be available this year after the FAFSA opens. As soon as we start receiving ICERs from the federal government, those will be going in and testing in ScholarTrack, and we will also be testing that in the dashboard. As long as we feel like everything is working smoothly, we will then open that up for tracking purposes throughout the year. CHE also sends FAFSA completion data to the Department of Education at the end of the cycle. So we add that to the Indiana GPS dashboard, and that is usually June 30th annually. You will see that the dashboard and Indiana GPS may look different, and they're always probably going to look different because I think if you've been to any of the IFSA workshops over the past years, you've heard me and the outreach coordinators talk about the differences in cohorts. For each agency. The Department of Education does not change a student's cohort. Whatever they start off as, that is their cohort. But for us here at the Commission, we need to ensure that we update cohorts based on when students are graduating and going to be utilizing their aid, so we can ensure that everything is working smoothly in ScholarTrack. So for us, it means that we will be updating and changing those things in ScholarTrack based on our conversations with you all, based on students graduating early, based on students not graduating at their original graduation timeframe as well. All right. So we want to recap a little bit what happened in the 24-25 FAFSA season. So we faced many challenges. I love the alliteration of a rocky rollout. That is exactly what it was. And I think we can all feel that. And we feel that for our students and our families who are most greatly affected. So FAFSA Simplification Act made those significant changes to the FAFSA form. The FAFSA opened December 31st instead of October 1. And there were significant technical problems with the website, electronic FAFSA form causing delays and disruptions for students trying to submit those and making those corrections. And especially our parents without Social Security numbers faced a variety of challenges trying to submit their own portions of the applications for their students. So that limited access to support services, that guidance during those peak submission periods, it really created all these difficulties that made it harder for students to get timely help and for them to submit timely as well. Our completion campaign really focused on the several statewide initiative campaigns that we have done in the past, but also wanted to build off of. So as you know from past completion campaigns, we send emails, we do social media posts, we continued with those things. We did FAFSA events on Facebook Live. So we did one specifically closer to filing time, but we also partnered and loved at the Indiana Latino Institute were able to find like bilingual opportunities to serve our students across the state. And so our outreach coordinators were there during those Facebook Live events. We had information in state of Indiana employee newsletters, ensuring that even like our people here at the state understood like you should be filing a FAFSA or your students should be filing a FAFSA. The Richard and Fairbanks Foundation was so generous within Marion County with this College Matters initiative, granting additional funding to high schools and community-based organizations to ensure that college applications were being filed and FAFSAs were being filed as well. Multiple interviews from CHE leadership team across different media outlets, press releases, FAFSA completion letters. So if you are curious, like what we did, right? Like what are all the things and what that looked like, you can actually find our 24-25 FAFSA campaign on our website. I've hyperlinked it here, but you'll be able to see that on the CHE state website if you are curious about kind of what happened through that. We really wanted to highlight this because we're really proud of the work that was happening in Indiana, not only for the completion campaign and what we did, but we know that you all as practitioners with Senate Enrolled Act 167, the delayed rollout, there was a lot happening at schools and a lot of conversations that, of course, you were leading. And so we want to applaud you and thank you for all the work that you have done with your communities, at your schools, with your own family members. I know I've talked to many of you, how you all were like, I need to make sure my little cousin or my niece or my nephew is filing the FAFSA and they're having issues. We know that there were so many conversations that were happening all last year. And it resulted in us having this ranking of #1 for our low-income high schools. And we were the only state to have actually like closed the gap for the year-over-year change for completions as well. And as you can see, we ranked 4th out of for high minority high schools at 1%, alongside Wyoming, Vermont, Maine, as one of the states that had closed that gap as well. So as of August 30th, we ranked 27 out of 50 states in FAFSA completions for the class of 2024, considering that at the end of the 23-24 cycle, we were in 39th. So if you've heard Commissioner Lowry speak, if you've had the pleasure, there's this phrase that he uses, pleased but not satisfied. And we are very pleased, but we are not satisfied. We know that there's a lot more work to be done, and you all know that as well. So we want to take the time to celebrate all the hard work that is being done, but we also know we have another year of a delayed FAFSA where we have less time to work with students than we had in previous years. So we know that we need to keep going and trucking along with the progress that has been happening within the state. But again, we want to take this time to thank you all as practitioners, as boots on the ground of working directly with your students and having hard conversations with families. We also were receiving those calls, talking with families, talking about the importance of FAFSA. So we know, we understand, but we know you got it more than anybody, right? So again, we ranked 1st in the nation for the change compared to last year in submissions and completions. And our charge moving forward, as we talked with other states, as we talked with federal levels, that we saw that the focus on that studentaid.gov account, that FAFSA ID creation, really made the difference. That early focus on making sure that financial literacy is happening within your schools to your families and your students, creating the FSA ID, and then telling them there is another step, there are things coming, let's prepare for that, really helped insulate us along with Senate Enrolled Act 167 to ensure that we could have that be 1st in the nation for that change compared to last year and close that gap as well. So our charge going into this fall, which you all have been doing because I hear that you are reaching out to our outreach coordinators and you're talking to InvestEd and reaching out to your local colleges and universities, financial aid offices to come in and start doing those. So keep doing what you're doing. If you haven't started, please reach out and create time on your schedule this fall to do an FSAID event creation, financial literacy night, all that good stuff. So 25-26 FAFSA implementation. FAFSA opening on or before December 1. It's through this phased rollout process. So if you've been plugged in at all with what's happening with this form specifically, there are phased rollouts that are happening starting today. with limited sets of students. So there is very limited testing that's happening with round one of beta testing, which is happening today and tomorrow across the country. Very small populations of students who are filing their FAFSA. And then there'll be 3 more rounds 2, 3, and 4, which that timeline has recently been released, I think as of yesterday. So apologies that that is not in here, but we have added some electronic communications throughout all of this. So if you are not plugged in or not sure where to find that information, we have that connected in here. But there'll be different rounds of beta testing that are happening across the country. So we are hopeful and we expect that through a phased rollout, that issues that are still persisting in the 24-25 FAFSA and what will probably be persisting through the 25-26 form as well, that as that is rolling out, and as students are filing these FAFSAs and as ICERs are getting to the different universities and state financial aid offices, that we are figuring out what is happening in that federal student aid, and the U.S. Department of Education is figuring out how to fix those things before it is open to the entirety of the population who will be filing FAFSA on or before December 1. So again, this beta testing is primarily open to select community-based organizations. And during that first round of beta testing, states could not sign up to participate. So we were relying upon the community-based organizations across the nation to be heading this for us. All right, so you've probably heard this goal before, but we're going to keep on keeping on with this goal of 60%. If you have had the pleasure of meeting Commissioner Lowry, talking to Commissioner Lowry, hearing him during his State of Higher Ed addresses, or just reading anything that's been happening in the last 2 to 3 years, the HOPE agenda is a huge piece and a guidepost for us here at the Commission on what we are hopeful for the future of Indiana to be. Especially when it comes to specific things on being a top 10 state in the nation by 2030 in those various areas. One that stuck out for this specifically is the first line of the HOPE agenda, which is post-high school training and education going rates for youth and adults across all demographics by leveraging a variety of tools. And as you can see, I bolded it and underlined it for us. FAFSA completions are part of that. So the reason why we're doing all these webinars, reaching out, ensuring that you all have information. Michelle and I are on Counselor Talk, trying to keep you all as updated as possible, because we know that that moving of the needle happens in small ways and small steps, but it also happens in big ways. And FAFSA filing is a leading indicator of a student actually matriculating to college. If they have filed the FAFSA, they are more likely to go and actually commit to what that next step is beyond high school. And again, college can mean a lot of different things. It can be that credential, certification, 2-year, 4-year degree, whatever that looks like for the student. But we know that that FAFSA, that actual act of filing the FAFSA and receiving their aid and applying to colleges make it more likely for a student to go on and do those things. So important updates and takeaways from the previous cycle and the things that we are hearing and are expecting for this cycle of the FAFSA. So getting to that 60% is going to be a feat, but I think with all of the work that has been put in place and a better rollout, hopefully, that we are hoping for from the federal government, that we know that it is possible and within our reach. Something that is great that we're thrilled that FSA has continued with is that there's a waive identity validation for those without social security numbers. So there's an announcement from July 30th that federal student aid made that identity verification process for those parents without social security numbers is going to be waived. So FSA will still allow them manual entry for anybody in that situation as well. So that's a positive that we can see that will continue, and that will continue until that has been fixed with federal student aid from that electronic announcement. We also expect and are taking away that delayed paper FAFSA processing will continue to happen. It will continue to be delayed. So filing electronically is always going to be the best way to file. We know in the past that those without SSNs or in specific situations, we know that some people have thought that it is a best practice to do a paper FAFSA. That is not the case. That is not necessary anymore. Filing electronically is going to be the best way to file, especially because you have a receipt of when you have filed that. You will get a confirmation email as soon as that goes through. Anything that you would need to appeal financial aid, right? All those pieces of documented information is so crucial throughout this cycle as well, because we know that there will be additional things that are happening, additional issues, additional delays that may be happening for specific populations of students. So filing electronically is always going to be the best way to file in our opinions. 2526 FAFSA form is essentially the same from what we're looking at with updates and clarity and instructions and questions. So you can expect that as you are filing that FAFSA and looking at those FAFSAs. And probably one of the most important takeaways that I think from a report from the U.S. Government Accountability Office just a few days ago, right? This came out, and a big takeaway from that report, which if you are at all interested, I linked the report. It's about 41 pages. It is in depth. So if you are interested in kind of the accountability piece of what's happening there, please read it. We encourage that. But a big takeaway that we saw that we feel like you all need to know is 5.4 million calls went to the Department of Education from January to May, and 4 million calls went unanswered. 4 million calls of people needing help, needing answers, having questions, not knowing what to do, feeling at a loss, did not get those answers. That's 74% of calls. And that is a huge, huge thing. And we know that getting local support is going to be helpful first. And I think that is going to be the biggest takeaway for this year for you and your students. Yes, being able to call federal student aid, get them on the phone while they're there, that's great. But as you all have witnessed and you all knew from last year, you were on hold for forever or the call was dropped. And the accountability office has put this out there of here's what actually happened. So we suggest and encourage you to reach out to your local support to get that help first. We are always happy to help answer questions and provide answers the way that we can. And VestEd's always happy to do that, as well as your financial aid offices at your colleges and universities that you have developed relationships with as well. So FSA's focus on improving the FAFSA experience. There's also an update that happened a few days ago that details the most frequently raised areas of concern and the actions that they're going to be taking to address those. So if you're at all curious, we wanted to add this in here as an additional footnote to the report, the Accountability Office report, but also that FSA and the U.S. Department of Education came out with this update and outlined these actions that they will be taking to address these concerns as well too. Everything from early and predictable timelines, improving resources, more transparency, improving user experience, alleviating burdens on institutions. So feel free to read through this, but you can find this on the FAFSA updates page through studentaid.gov as well in their Knowledge Center. What we can expect to continue. So there were some good things that came out of this. We want to highlight what is good about FAFSA simplification. It is faster and easier for the average user once they get into the form. Once your students have gotten in, it almost seemed too easy for your parents and students. If that's what it feels like, then it probably went the right way and the way that it was supposed to. So we're excited to see that it is taking less time and it is easier with the direct importing of tax information when everything is working. Right, when everything is working once they get into the form. So once your students get into that form, it is faster and easier for that average user. More students will qualify for aid and more students will qualify for maximum aid. And an estimated 33% more students were eligible for aid nationwide. And we will, of course, have data on specific implications for our state on that increased eligibility after October. And we will provide updates to our state budget committee later on this year. All right, so specific action items that we want to make sure that we are along with you saying that we're committed to and that we want to ensure that you are committed to serve your students and parents as well. We want to ensure that students and parents are creating their FSA IDs early. Early intervention of this, again, like I said before, I can't reiterate it enough. FSA ID creation is going to be a huge part in getting us across the finish line and getting students across the finish line and filing that FAFSA. We also want to make sure that we help students determine their dependency status. The parent wizard is great, and we know that throughout the FAFSA form, answering those questions has become a little bit easier and finding out the dependency status. But we also want to make sure that while we're filing these FAFSAs early on, that these students know this before they go into the form, so we know which parents need an FSA ID as well, right? So if a student is unsure what their dependency status is and they think they may be independent, but they're actually a dependent student, right? We want to figure that out. And if they are a dependent student, we need to know who needs FSA IDs, who those parents need that FSA ID, if not both of them, and to ensure that that is communicated early and often to parents that this is part of the process as well. We want to make sure that we're promoting FAFSA filing events widely and often. Please partner with our outreach coordinators and, of course, InvestEd. InvestEd's amazing. We know so many of you work with them, but if you haven't had anybody come do financial aid opportunities, we also know you all are very busy and there's a lot on your shoulders. So partner with us. Let us come in and help you. Let us come in and help be experts in the room to ensure that your families and students can get questions answered, support in addition to the support that you and your school staff give them. Be familiar with Scholar Track reports. The reports utilization of like what you have at your fingertips in Scholar Track is awesome. I can't express this enough. The FAFSA completion report is amazing. Each time you download it, you're going to see new students who have filed their FAFSA or filed a wrong year FAFSA. Being able to keep up with that information is so helpful because we know when we ask a student, did you file your FAFSA? And they look at us and they're like, yeah, I filed my FAFSA. And then you go in a week later and it says no in there and you're like, are you sure you filed your FAFSA or did you just want me to get off your back on that? So at least gives you some additional information of, yes, we want to believe our students when they tell us they've done the things that we told them to do, but we also want to make sure that we have the information that has been reported. So if there is an issue, right, if the student filed their FAFSA and it says no and they swear they did, we want to figure out what that issue is and where the disconnect is, or if we need to request that ICER from the federal government because it didn't come through, right? So be familiar with Scholar Track reports because it helps indicate to us if there is an issue, but it also helps you feel more confident and secure in the knowledge that you have that you can share with your administration or that you can have just to know where you're at in the whole cycle of everything. A report on FAFSA waiver usage. Please know that this is part of Senate Roll Act 167. You have to report these waivers. So after April 15th, once we have passed the state deadline of filing your FAFSA, we want to ensure that you all through the graduation details timeframe before June 30th are reporting those FAFSA waivers to us. Again, avoid the paper FAFSA at all costs. If you are unsure of what's happening, feel free to obviously reach out to us and we can help guide you and the student and family on that. Reach out to InvestEd for that as well too. And then again, get local support. That 74% of unanswered calls is so concerning and it makes me worried just as a state practitioner for all of our students across the state and across the nation as well. We know that FSA is working on things and are being held accountable to those things, but we also know that getting a quick answer sometimes makes the difference between the family filing a FAFSA and the family not filing a FAFSA. So if CHE and InvestEd and our financial aid offices can help in any way, please allow us to do so. All right, additional resources. So if you have never filed a FAFSA or if you have never seen the FAFSA, if you're a new counselor in the world, or if this is a new responsibility for your school as a school staff member, the FAFSA prototype has been a great addition to tools that FSA has released during FAFSA simplification. And the prototype demonstrates multiple scenarios. So you need to go in and like click through and see what questions, how the questions are worded, and look through and see, oh, I know my students are going to have issues with these questions, and a way to prepare yourself to feel like you're ready to go when the time comes and the FAFSA opens. The prototype is an incredible tool. It has helped me feel more comfortable with talking about this FAFSA simplification and how this FAFSA is done. I know all of the people in the room who have been practitioners for years, right? There are certain ways we've talked about the FAFSA and what questions, and you'll get to this page, and it's so different now. So being familiar often with this FAFSA prototype will prepare you for when the FAFSA opens. And as your students are clicking through, you have seen the form before you're actually working through the form with students as well. So the prototype is not exhaustive. It does have its limitations with scenarios, unfortunately, but it does outline the new application for a student or a parent, completing in progress applications, and then what common correction scenarios are happening, including like missing signatures and voluntary corrections to go in and add schools and things like that. So in order to access FAFSA prototype, we added in the access code as well as the specific page that will take you to that prototype as well. Federal student aid resources. There are great resources you as a practitioner can utilize federal student aid's website for. So we anticipate that these pages will continue to be available for the 25-26 through the Knowledge Center, just as they were from the past cycle. So the FAFSA issues alerts page. This is one that is pinned to my favorite bar. Every day or every week I was going in to look at what issues were present, what was happening, what is newly presented issues, what has been resolved and rectified on the form. This issue alerts page will give you that in the minute where we're at with that information. So if you are working with a student and find an issue and you're like, that's interesting, go into the FAFSA issue alerts page, which if you just type that to Google, it'll pop right up. It'll be the first thing that pops up for you. Seeing that information, it also has workarounds in there. So if there is an issue and they have found a workaround before actually fixing the issue, they found a way to get around the issue while they're trying to fix the issue on the back end, there are workarounds present for a lot of those issues as well. FAFSA Fast News. So any updates or information that's coming from federal student aid, that's a great place for that information. Checking in the FAFSA status, like, is the FAFSA closed? Is it not working? Is it not working for me? Is it not working for everybody? That's helpful information. There's a FAFSA updates page and then a FAFSA FAQ as well. And then the YouTube channel, so FSA Outreach and Federal Student Aid both have great front-facing videos for your students and families. So if you are trying to send out information to your students and families and want them to feel educated and know where that information is, there are great like 30-second, 90-second videos for students and families. But then there's actually trainings for practitioners on some of these pages as well. So if you have questions, concerns, trying to remember what it was like, if you blocked it out of your memory from last year, need to get reacquainted, go onto the YouTube channels, because those trainings are actually very helpful. And then Indiana support, right? So we have the federal support. We want to make sure that we highlight that again, that local support is going to be so crucial this year to ensure that our students and families are being served the way that we know that they need to be served and supported. So the CHE outreach coordinators are always happy to help, not only with 21st Century Scholars, but with any student who's filing a FAFSA and learning more about their state financial aid resources and options. So we linked their contact us page. Many of you have their direct emails for your region. So just connect with them, ask them to come do an FSAID creation night, ask them to help out with your FAFSA filing events that are happening in the spring. The more help, the better. We're happy to come and provide resources and just boots on the ground and just people, right? Just people to help in that. InvestEd, we're always going to highlight the great work that InvestEd does. They go to so many of your schools each year, and that is growing continuously. Book early with them. That's going to be like my biggest advice for InvestEd is reach out now to create your spring FAFSA filing events. Make sure that you are doing that and reaching out to them. But they also have great literacy information there. They can do a ton of different options. It's not just FAFSA filing, but FSA ID creation, financial aid literacy for your juniors, things of that nature. And then Indiana Student Financial Aid Association has high school regional coordinators. Many of these coordinators are staff at universities and colleges across the state as well. So if you're looking for somebody else to come in who's much more local, maybe than us or InvestEd, there are by county, I think by region, those high school regional coordinators that can come in and also help with FAFSA filing, FSAID creation as well. You also have incredible regional community-based organizations. Everything from like Fort Wayne down to Evansville, you all have your own specific communities that you all work with and that your schools rely upon. Utilize those community-based organizations because they are very aware of what has been happening. And part of their access pieces of getting students to college or preparing for their future, this has been a huge piece of that. So many of your community-based organizations are more than happy to help in this area. And then, of course, your local and university financial aid offices. So many of you are so lucky to have universities right in your backyard, and reaching out to those financial aid offices to say, hey, we would love for someone to just come in and talk with our families about financial aid, or you just need additional help at a financial aid night, or you need someone to actually like be there and be the expert in the room. You do not have to be the expert in the room. We want you to feel competent. We want you to feel like an expert, but we also know there are a lot of things happening at your schools. So let us come in and take that burden off of you sometimes and be the experts in the room for you and for your community. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention College Goal Sunday, of course. February 23rd will be College Goal Sunday. There will be one College Goal Sunday this year from FAFSA, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. your local time, various locations around the state. I think this is the 36th year, which is very exciting for College Goal Sunday. And we had our largest year last year. So we're expecting that to be the same, and for more families to be filing and looking for that help and that support as well. So if you have any questions, I think in the next few weeks, the College Goal Sunday website will be updated. So this date is not on the website yet, but Matt and Bill, if you know who they are from IFSA and Invested, will be updating that information soon for us, as well as releasing the locations across the state that College Goal Sunday will be at. Like this webinar, we have additional webinars that are coming up. So we wanted to highlight that if you have questions about 21st Century Scholars automatic enrollment, we have 2 coming up, one for all schools that will be helpful information for everybody. And then we have a specific session for those schools who are community eligible provision schools. If you're not sure if you are that, talk to your high school administrators. They should know specifically like what your school falls under. But if you're a community eligible provision school, there'll be a specific webinar to answer your questions about how students are getting automatically enrolled. This is good for middle school as well as high school counselors. So share this within your district as well too to anybody that you feel like needs this information. And you can register here on those links on this page, and then reach out to us for what you need. We want to continue to be supportive and create resources that are helpful for you all. So if there's things that you need from us, we wanted to make sure that we shared all these inboxes so you can get direct help and answers for the questions that you have. You can always contact your outreach coordinator. That is what I will tell you, always reach out to your outreach coordinator because we can get you connected with whoever you need. But we also wanted to ensure that you have these inboxes for access. Everything from career discovery meetings, career and technical education, Indiana College Corps, pre-admissions, the whole gamut. So please reach out to us and let us know how we can help you. All right, that was a lot of information. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. You'll see me on here. I think that it looks like Michelle and Victoria, I'm looking across and they're sitting at the table right now, that they've been answering questions in the chat as well too. But Michelle and Victoria, is there anything that for like the good of the group that we should probably answer?
Yeah, it looks like several folks signed on at a variety of different times. If you all can't hear me, I'm talking through Hillary's, tell me in the chat, but hopefully you can hear me. The things about the waivers, just to share a little bit of information about this. At the beginning of this presentation, there is a link to the waiver for this year. It is on our CHE website in the same spot it was last year. And you will enter that information into ScholarTrack the same as last year. If you haven't done that before, there are screenshots about how you will do that in the beginning of this PowerPoint presentation. And then as we get closer to April 15th, we will certainly send step-by-step instructions out via counselor talk and a variety of other ways as well. Some additional commentary I just want to add about that. I understand the often lack of capacity that those of you who work in the schools have. So just to talk through this waiver process a little bit, I am legally required to provide a waiver. We have done that. We need you all legally to put something into the system if a student is going to have a waiver. That can happen in a variety of ways. Either the parent or guardian has opted out the student via the paper form. The student, if they're emancipated or over 18, has filled out the form, or you do the mass waiver option. Some of our schools figured out real quick last year that the least capacity option for you is to just do the mass upload after April 15th. In order to qualify to do that, you have to have communicated to your students and their families at least twice about the FAFSA. I'm not collecting those messages, though I do recommend that until those students graduate, you keep record of them just in case anything were to ever happen. But if all you want to do is focus the capacity that you do have on FSA ID creation, FAFSA filing, and that mass upload at the end of the year, that is fine by me. I'm never going to collect those paper waivers from you. You are just going to enter them into the system. So if you want to save your school resources and not printing them, and you want to save yourself the capacity of not having to pass them out and collect them, the mass waiver option is completely fine after April 15th, as long as you have communicated twice to your students and families about the FAFSA. So if that alleviates workload on you, fine to go that way. While if you have other questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I do just want to expand upon a couple of the ones that I have answered. Jessica asked at the very beginning about those who may choose to go out of state. We certainly realize that's going to happen, though of course we love when students choose our in-state institutions. I did link there. Every year there's a document that is who is my FAFSA parent. You can just Google that and find it. We will share it regularly as well. There's also some resources on who is my FAFSA contributor that will answer that question for you. But generally speaking, if parents are married in the same household, both are going on it. If parents are divorced or separated, not living in the same household, the one who's providing the most financial support is who's going on there. If you have questions about that, see the resources or contact us. That being said, many don't understand how residency works for admissions and financial aid. So if you have a student from Indiana who is going out of state, they are considered a non-resident student for that institution for tuition and fee purposes and financial aid. In the case that Jessica put in here, that's even if they have an in-state parent, because most campuses' residency policy is you cannot claim residency solely because you moved here to go to school. Which means usually if you want to get in-state tuition, you have to have moved to the state for a period of time long before you would have enrolled in order to get that. Now, there are residency appeal processes, but I just want to make sure that you understand for your students as you are counseling them, if they are interested in out of state, generally speaking, they will not be eligible for state aid in that state. Most of us do not give state aid to out of state students. And so the FAFSA would be for federal aid and institutional aid purposes, unless they were to successfully file for a residency appeal. If you ever want to talk more about that, I'm happy to share more information with you. And Hillary has a big admissions background as well. So certainly let us know if you have questions about that. Stephen had a great question about timeline. Last year was a strange year. We were told it won't be that way in terms of us receiving files, but in a typical year, it takes about 1 to 3 business days for a student's FAFSA record to get to us. So you will not immediately see it populate in ScholarTrack. We will be on a more regular cycle this year from everything they've told us, unless something goes horribly wrong during this beta testing period. And as I put in there as a recommendation, if you ever go, I would say about 2 weeks out, if you know that a student has filed and you have their confirmation email and you still don't see it, then reach out to us, because every now and then there is a strange glitch where maybe we haven't got their individual file, and we have the ability to search for individual files and get those from the federal government. But otherwise, just give us, a few days to get those uploaded into the system. There was one other I wanted to expand on. Let's see here. Actually, I think that's it. Let's see. Valerie, Hillary just answered that question about this FAFSA cover trade and community college or just 4-year schools. It does cover everything. And in some cases, it will even cover sort of workforce training program, short-term credentials. It really just kind of depends on what the institution is offering. But if the institution has a federal school code that can be entered onto the FAFSA, it counts for that, which all of our institutions across the state, it does. What else can we answer for you? Have anything, you can put it in the chat. For those who also didn't see the part about the phased rollout, it is testing is starting today. We are, I believe, one of the few states in the country that is ready to receive files. We are fortunate in that we manage our system in-house and we don't work with a third-party vendor like many institutions and states do to have our system. So we're not waiting on vendors to make updates. We have been told by Federal Student Aid that we can expect to start receiving files on or after October 8th, and we are ready to receive those. So we stand ready. Most of our institutions in the state are on one of two vendor-based systems. One of those systems was to be sending information to their institutions on September 23rd. And the other one is coming soon. So we, as a state, will have our state system and most of our institutions ready to go fairly soon. In spite of the fact that typically we get information to prepare for that in February, and we just got it a few days ago. So I'm grateful to that we are in that situation as a state.
Great. Awesome. Please keep putting any questions in the chat. Michelle, Victoria, and I will still be here for the next couple minutes. I'll go ahead and stop recording for us as well.
And Hillary did mention at the beginning, I did mention in the chat, but we